Okay, I think I'm getting in the position. Thank you very much for being here today, and we're trying to get the slides all put together. We did the Grand Canyon group, and as Vicki mentioned, we have many different levels. So one of the things we decided to start with was, what is problem-based learning? And I think I can move the screens. What is problem-based learning? And problem-based learning is based on curriculum. It develops problem skills for the students. It's much more process-centered than product-centered. So as the other group talked about the process of how they get all the physics and those pieces put together, that's what problem-based learning is about. It's very student-centered. The teacher is a facilitator. They are not they aren't the director. They aren't the lecturer. They go around, they help the students with their process of their learning. With that, how does it work? The problems help drive the curriculum. They are ill-structured, which means that they allow for many different types of endings or answers to the question. Again, you have the small group working. Each person in the group has something that they're working on. So there's much more buy-in and participation from the students. And then they get to use their own thinking for how the problem is going to be solved. The teacher is very much a facilitator throughout all of this. They ask the questions of the students of how they are learning what they're learning and how do they support what they're learning. There's some different approaches to problem-based learning. And my screens aren't moving, sorry. Okay, different approaches to problem-based learning. One of them is problem-centered. That's where you have individual roles within the group. They are preset. The students would then choose those different roles. There's a series of questions, which is a lot of the way we've done this. What questions have to be solved? And those questions help to drive what concepts are going to be learning. They also, in problem-centered ones, you would have resources developed. I don't know why our screens are moving. Our screens are going different directions. Sorry, guys. Okay. I think I'm back on the right screen. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So the problem-based learning, you do have the resources presented to them so the kids have a direction in which to travel. The student-centered approach is also, you still have another problem, you're still in small groups, you still have individual roles, but in this one you choose what it is you need to learn to solve the problem. And then you would also need to, the student would then go out and find the resources they need to be able to solve the problem. In the research I did, student-centered ones, much more medical schools use those for doctors to do it. Problem-simulated ones, which are much more education, business-based. Whether that is or isn't, that's just how they presented it. Benefits of problem-based learning. There are many benefits, as it was stated by the other group. Teamwork is something that is done throughout your life. So learning it starting at a young age is always a benefit, a good thing, so the kids learn how to work together. It brings more meaning to what is being learned. You have a goal. A lot of times we teach students skills and pieces, but they can't attach it to their real life, and this helps give them an attachment to that. Anything where they learn it in context tends to be something that they will retain much longer. Their own mind processes what they need to learn so that they can figure out how to remember it, recall it, and look at it from different angles when the question comes up again. Problem-based learning does take what the kids know, adds information to then expand their base for the next time they come up with a new problem, and builds up for their It also gives them an opportunity for self-evaluation. How do they learn best? What are they learning? Being responsible for their learning so that they can advance in the future years. Some considerations for PBL is that when you have a problem, you have a set time frame. If you go out too far, the students get lost and they will constantly tweak it and they will never come to a conclusion. It gives them an opportunity to have an end point, somewhere where they have to get to pretty quickly. The time frame helps them with learning, so that more practice gives them more of an opportunity to get faster and quicker and think more concisely as they get better and better at it. For younger students, sometimes background information may need to be given to them if they have not received it in some other form or fashion, and that will give them something to build on for success. RTOP, which is a protocol, it's a reform teaching observation protocol. It was developed by ASU. It's an instrument designed to measure teacher use of reform teaching methods. It's very much designed for math and science. That observation tool works very well with problem-based learning because the kids explore. Then you might support with more information. They can explore some more and have their learning guided a little bit. With PBL, it's, again, very student-centered, teacher-facilitated. It promotes very collaborative learning environment, which is, as we've stated before, works really well in the real world. And from there, I'll go ahead and give it to Allison for spiraling curriculum.
Good morning. Thank you all for giving us this opportunity to share with you the work that we've done. We found it most interesting when talking about PBLs. Teachers intuitively have a feel for things that work with their students and maybe things that don't. So we went out to do a little research to see if there was obviously research to support these intuitive feelings. And in looking through studies, I was able to come across the work of Jerome Bruner with the theory of cognitive growth. Bruner looked at environmental and experiential factors when it comes to learning and education for children. And he thought that the intellectual ability actually for students develops in stages, which was kind of in opposition to the other teachings of the time, for instance, of those of Piaget. In the 1960s, Bruner viewed students as very active problem solvers. And I think if we were to look at toddlers, preschool children, even early kindergarten, we all ask questions just as human beings. That's part of our human nature. Watching a small child trying to open a container or figure out how blocks fit together. When you take a step back and view this through cognitive growth, they are problem solving at a very early age. And different people are ready for different subject matter, different activities at earlier ages and at different ages. So this brings us to the point of trying to use these ideas in our teaching and learning for students, basing the work on structure, not just memorization of facts, true actual learning. Children need to see a connection, and this was a large part of Bruner's work. Next, please. I'm hoping we did our screen changed. Yes, good. Thank you. I'm terribly sorry. Okay. Bruner believed that curriculum should spiral. And as we've seen in the social studies curriculum, while we may not agree here in Arizona 100% with the topics as they're laid in, I do believe as educators that we can see the sense, the logic, the commonality in spiraling. The idea being that students build upon their knowledge and hopefully eventually come to a point of fully understanding the concepts presented. Work should be intuitive to children. There should be analytical thinking in all ages, in all areas, as children form their learning levels and do tasks of varying degree. Motive for children in learning should never be grades alone. We do realize for some children that is their sole motive, but we need to find interesting, effective curriculum and topics that will in some way tie to our children. Therefore, we felt that we were able to find research to support our intuitive thoughts that PBL learning and building on a spiraling concept of the learning, in our case about the Grand Canyon, will definitely fit and be supported by Bruner's research and his teaching. We're hoping in this way to take a common theme of the Grand Canyon, spiral it overarching, if you will, and building interest all the way from early elementary through high school age children so that our children can find interest and also have a basis to look back on and a connection. And of course, here in Arizona, the Grand Canyon is a great connection and fits very well with our science and geography standards. I thank you very much. I'll now turn things over to Lynette. Thank you.
Hi, I covered the Geo-literacy, and the standards are, you can cover everything with it, with reading, writing, and language as they're doing the projects. Why is it important? It's important because it's not just finding places and other things, are the places and how to get there, but it's finding details like what the culture's like and developing the culture in the area and history of the area. The biggest thing is helping the students be aware of cultural awareness and and they need to think about the global citizens as global citizens and all of our history behind it. We need to be watching that because our world is changing every day and breaking down the borders with the technology so that our borders are not as they used to be represented. And the geoliteracy helps in making us aware of the environment changes and what they cause in our world, and it will help in making responsible citizens of everyday individuals. And then why is the history? Second, trying to see. Okay, why is the history of the Grand Canyon important? The study of geography and science is involved. Now, why is the Grand Canyon one of the seven major seven world wonders that is still here? And why hasn't it been taken off the list like many others? And then what I did was I developed a PBL on it for groups of 3 and 4 students. They will hypothesize a question about the Grand Canyon. They will then do research, and they will use books and articles and videos to prove their answers, and they will create a visual and verbal presentation. And then at the end they will create a bibliography of what they use. And this can be used in any project and then just added to. It's just helping and getting them to read and know all the available sources out there that many times leak. And then there is a list of different sites that are good for this. And I'm going to hand it off to Amanda.
Welcome again. We have one of the things we did as a group was we went through and we took standards at all the different levels and put them in a couple of different slides together. And won't read them all because that would be very daunting. There are geography standards that run across each of the areas. We also had standards in science standards, which ran again across all grade levels, and for 2 slides also. So it went on for quite a while. What we went down to is we also had the technology standards because we have that fairly new in our curriculum, and so this gives a lot of hits a lot of areas for technology as the kids do research and writing and putting things together in PowerPoints or brochures. Okay, and then what we did at the elementary level was we went through and took a look at what we could do for the younger kids. And what we decided is there's a whole program out there about the 7 natural wonders of the world and what are the new natural wonders of the world. There's a group out there that are trying to develop or have it be a global situation that everybody gets to vote on what are the natural wonders of the world. So what we did was we created our problem such that it could go from low elementary, 2nd grade, up through 5th grade work. There's a group in the process of trying to decide the new 7 wonders of the world, natural wonders, not man-made. They're doing a whole separate project on man-made. Of the 7 natural wonders of the world, list them out for the students because that would not be something they would currently have in their knowledge base. This group has taken all sorts of wonders and brought it down to 28 finalists. On the final list, one of the only ones that are still from the original list is the Grand Canyon. And since we live in Arizona and the Grand Canyon is very important to us, the kids have a 2-fold process. One is that they have to figure out how they're going to help ensure how they're going to promote that the Grand Canyon stays on this list, and then how they can help decide what other natural wonders would also be on this new list of natural wonders of the world. So with that, they would locate where the current ones are, and they would locate that on a map. Older students could then locate the current 28 finalists on a map. They would then decide what makes them a natural wonder, what makes them worthy of that. A lot of the stuff we found was more visual than written research. There's some writings out there, but a lot of it they will have to interpret, infer, make the decisions on their own. They'll have to decide what are some of the attributes that need to be dealt with for that. And the economic impact that would have, let's say on the Grand Canyon, if it did not become a 7th wonder of the world still, if there would be an impact on that, and that would be their lead-in. One of the things that need to occur is, again, the groups would be small. The teacher would have to possibly do some background information, either showing them video clips of some of the wonders of the world, have the kids decide and start discussing on their own, then maybe having the teacher bring them back into conversation so that they can get a trial going on a particular direction. When they're all said and done, as they present to their class, what did they research? What do they know about the Grand Canyon? Because they would research just a couple of them, not all 28. That'd be too much. Then they can, either individually or as group, or the teacher can do it as one whole class. They can actually vote and put their voice into this global piece as to what they consider would be the wonders of the world. From there, depending on the makeup of the class and how old the students are, they could figure out to create an eighth wonder of the world. What would you could either do based on pieces that are currently available, finding another location in the world that they would choose and why they would choose it, support that, or they could make one up, I guess, if that's what the teacher wanted to do. So those would be some options to do that. There are a number of websites that are available, which we did list to help with the teachers figuring out how to do that. And then, some of those resources are visual resources with video clips. Some are lesson plan ideas, so the teacher would need to go through and decide which ones want to work best for their students and help them figure that part out. We did have different, we did put in some standards that would be specific at this level. And those would be things with the social studies ones, physical systems, geography, foundations of economics. They would get into that a little bit, which is kind of tough at an elementary level, so it's nice to get a problem that presents it so that it can work on the economic piece. It's hard to present it as a standalone. This makes it a much more meaningful piece to the students. And then with that, we will go ahead and pass it on to, I believe, Allison.
No, actually, that will be
that's,
Rich.
no, that's
my apologies.
mine.
There we go. Sorry about that. Little difficulty with the mic. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk to you today about the middle school piece, piggybacking on that economic theme that Amanda just mentioned. Next slide, please. Why am I not seeing the next slide? Okay. Sorry, this is kind of new to me and being not real tech savvy. A very interesting scenario. Okay. We posed the following question to our students. Okay, business owners from the North Arizona Tourism Alliance are concerned about a sharp decline in tourism in the Grand Canyon over the last 5 years. The data they collected showed that air pollution, low water levels, overuse, and lack of maintenance on trails, diminishing wildlife populations, and noise pollution are affecting tourism at the canyon. The next slide, please. We break them into teams of 4, a biologist, a geologist, a hydrologist, and an environmentalist, and their task is to collect data pertinent to their different areas of expertise, identify what are causing these problems, and explore possible solutions to these problems. We want them to remember to stay within their particular field of study so that when they come back to present this information as a team, they will then have to learn how to mesh the information. Next slide, please. Okay, we know, I'm not going to read this stuff for you. You can see what the slide says. I do like the economic tie-in here, and we are all well aware that this is a major tourist attraction worldwide, and there are a lot of businesses in that area that depend on tourism to the Grand Canyon. It also promotes a wide variety of tourism, for instance, to the Painted Desert, Petrified Forest, Meteorite Crater, Flagstaff, is supported by a lot of these tourism dollars. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to gather this group of scientists together and give them this task. Okay, next slide. This is the information that the students are given as to what the expectations are for each role. Next slide. Okay. And this is your final task. You need to answer that question, how the Grand Canyon can still be a tourist attraction, but yet maintain its natural beauty. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to Tom, and I will be back to talk to you a little bit later. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I kind of did a spin-off from Rich's and their middle school thing because I can teach middle school and high school. So what we did was try to take that tourist organization, and I gave them a problem. What I would read to the kids first would be this. I'm going to read it to you so you can understand where I'm going from this. It's Colorado is one of the main reasons that the tourists visit the Grand Canyon. The river brought life to ancient civilizations and made possible early settlements in the Southwest. So today, the water is supplying the resources to several states. All the states that surround the Colorado want a piece of that water, and there's 30 million people in these states that use this water, and then there's 13 Native American tribes, and then all the animals and the habitats in the areas are increasingly rare habitats are depending on this water, but the Grand Canyon resource are weakening due to all this heavy burden, which is still increasing as we go. The Grand Canyon Tourism Consortium that Rich talked about, they're concerned with the growing issues in the canyon and their effects on how they do business and the cost and the effect on them from any changes that will bring. And they can do something that will help or solve these issues. They want to do it. So the issues that could confront the canyon right now are water pollution, air pollution, noise pollution, and loss of water, one of the biggest ones. Next slide. The Grand Canyon has suffered dramatically from downstream flows from the Glen Canyon Dam. This fluctuating flows is really what's been affecting a regular part of the dam operations and blocking the water. They do a release and erodes the beaches and reduces the native populations and habitat and undermines sediment support for coastal states. The reservoir levels have fallen to historic lows and have become imperative not only to change the way we manage the river, but also reconsider how we operate dams. Lower water levels directly affect the water rafting business, among many other things. The heart and soul of the Grand Canyon is the Colorado River. This was said by Dan McCall, the Director of Environmental Studies at the University of Utah. The river is in danger of becoming a sterile man-made channel lined with invasive species, filled with invasive aquatic species that aid to the pollution. The threat of new uranium mine is higher prices for uranium have renewed interest in opening mines in public lands near the Grand Canyon. There's more than 1,000 new claims that have been filed in recent years to a prospect that Park Group and other critics argue with and harm the canyon. There's air pollution, noise pollution. The regional haze from power plants and cities hundreds of miles away is getting mar the views of the canyon well. Noise from air tours disturbs science, and the report said and cleaning air would require the pollution controls on power plants. Next slide. Okay, what I'm going to do is that to solve the problem in the Grand Canyon, I want the kids, the businesses that operate the Grand Canyon, who are members of the Grand Canyon Tourist Consortium, need to see what the effects of the issues in the canyon are like water pollution, air pollution, noise, loss of water, and the possible solutions are, and how to increase tourism and any change that will affect them. They'll need to tour. They'll need to become a tour guide who knows the river, some scientists who are knowledgeable about the problem they're looking at, and a representative for them. To present the problem to the students, I have to contribute. I have them to contribute what they know about the issues in the Grand Canyon. So this is kind of a teacher monitored activity where they can do this individually or in groups. We do it as a whole class, and then I just kind of monitor what they know. So it's kind of a rehash of what they know about the canyon, but a lot of these kids have learned about the water in Arizona, where it comes from, and our canal system. We get a lot of the water from the Colorado. This can be written. We'll do it. Do it as a whole class and write it on the board and organize it and see what they know. Next slide. Then to solve the problem, the students become a tour guide, a scientist, or a consortium member on a rafting trip down the river. The tour guides will explore the Grand Canyon and mark out features and points of interest and show what their passengers that are affected by water, noise, air pollution. And using the ArcGIS, and I'll go into that in a second so we can explain what that is. We won't be able to bring it in a second light. The scientists will pick the kind of science they want to be and research what they have to tell the consortium. And the consortium member will pick a business to research concerns. So we'll have a combination of these three different things, and the kids are going to decide which ones mesh the best. And we may have some changes going on there, which is an opportunity for the kids to know what one of the sciences needs to be for a certain business. If they pick the wrong one, they have to readdress and change back to something else. So I think it's a good idea for them to go hash over that kind of meshing and see what happens with them. Next slide, please. What we know, then we go over the kids what they actually know. So they review with the whole class, and the outside sources, polluted water, things like that, and Colorado River is a source of water. These are probably things that they probably will come up with. I'm sure we're going to get a bigger list than this. And things we use here in Phoenix and other states use them, like visitors and other water resources, finding the starting point and ending point of the trip. And other issues in the canyon, we're going to go over our Project WET, which they've just covered before in younger grades in the Colorado River watersheds. Next slide, please. And then we have a couple of these other resources are going to look into before they decide what groups they're going to be in. And then since we weren't able to get ArcGIS, I'll give you a little explanation about what ArcGIS is. It's a slide presentation program you can use. It uses Google Maps, and you can see the whole world with it, or you can zoom down to a place. You can actually go right into the canyon and get topography. You can get street maps, which is not too many streets down there, but you can get everything that exists. You can get features. You can get there's a kind of a set of maps that you can use, and then you can actually go in and mark the maps, which I thought was a great idea. The reason I got the idea was I saw one map that some river rafting group did, where they marked their whole trip down the river. You can actually mark routes, so that's what I want the kids to do. And pinpoint places. You can use GS. You can use longitude, latitude. You can come up with a lot of geographical features they can use. You can put notes in certain spots. And the Grand Canyon is a great place to look at features as far as every feature exists there, and you can see the times through a timetable through light that's exposed on the side walls of the canyon. And you should be able to look at. There's a lot of literature and stuff on the website that tells you about what's in the canyon. It contains a lot of biomes. Almost all the biomes are there in the canyon. You got from the bottom of the canyon all the way to the top. It gets icy on the north rim. Next slide, please. Next is to define the problem. The class will break up into their teams, and each team will decide who to represent what faction, decide the area canyon issue they want to address. They'll gather gather info, then each group decides what they need to know for the rafting trip. They'll share info and set up a mock trip and pair up in teams and tour guide team and a science team and a consortium team. And this becomes an exchange of info and concerns from all points. Next slide. Then a presentation, when they come up with a solution, the class will observe each team, present their tour, and then the whole class will discuss the possible solutions, and they will pick the best fit, and then the class will, as a whole, present the real consortium team of businesses. Next slide. So what's the next person? I'll turn it over to
Okay, can everyone see the screen? And can everyone hear me? Can anyone hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Oops. Sorry, I just have to get myself situated here. I can see the screen too. Okay, so I'm teaching biology, so I wanted to make a presentation that had to do with high school biology. So this is for 10th grade students in an urban setting with about 30 to 36 students in each class. And my problem that I'm going to give to the students is about the recent, not so recent, but the budget constraints that Congress has put on the Park Service. So if you can just read some of the slides, it just says that the park director has determined that only 10 parks can stay open in the whole United States. So, I do tell the students that one of the core missions of the park students is to conserve the nature and wildlife found within the parks. So the students are going to, of course, I'll tell them more details about how the funds are put on to the Park Services from the Interior, Department of the Interior, and the students will get to learn a little bit about that in science class, which I think is kind of interesting. Okay, so the students will design a plan of action that will maximize the biodiversity found within the 10 remaining parks. So the groups will devise a plan. They'll pick the 10 parks that can remain open, and it has to have the greatest biodiversity and be accessible to the population across the whole United States. The team members will consist of an ecologist, an entomologist, a botanist, a zoologist, and an ornithologist. So that will be the groups of 5, but each member of the group will be one of those scientists. Okay, they're going to work in groups of about 4 or 5. And the groups will concentrate on the number of species in each park, or the main species that are a part of that park. It's important to have a diversity of habitats represented across their 10 parks. They'll think about the water sources that are available in the park and in relation to the surrounding community, so we can bring in a lot of information about park relations with the public. They'll have to think about visitor access to parks, so how many people can visit each year, how many people live near the park. And they'll be guided to select parks in each region of the United States so that it's accessible to the whole country. So they will present a multimedia presentation to the class. They'll have to include rationale for choosing each park and include the process for selecting the 10 that they chose. So because they're high school students, they'll have to develop the criteria for choosing a park, and they'll have to explain about why they chose each one and why the criteria were important. They'll include concerns that they had about the 10 parks that they chose. They'll have to have a map of the United States with the 10 chosen parks marked on that map, so that their group members will definitely understand where those parks are located, as well as the people that they're presenting to. All members will present for approximately equal amount of time and information, and the group will also remark on the difficulties that they had while selecting the parks. And I will require that they include some type of prop to use during the presentation. These are some of the science standards, the high school science standards that will be used during the presentation. So most of it focuses on ecosystems. So they will, it'll be a little bit more structured where they do have to learn about specific parts of the environment of each of the parks. The rationale is that the initial, the rationale for the PBL is that the initial scenario stated concern about the knowledge of the United States geography. And students will have to become familiar with the locations of several different parks in the United States, not just the 10 that they choose, but they'll also learn about other parks as well. So they'll become familiar with what state they're located in, what part of each state they're located in, and how the ecosystems of those will be different depending on their locations. So I think that this problem is culturally relevant, and it's highly engaging for high school students because most of them have visited a national park and have familiarity with it. And by the time they're in 10th grade, they're interested in issues like the budget for Congress and things like that, even though they may not know very much about it at that point. The student groups will research location characteristics of different national monuments and parks in the United States. The project requirements will include students to find the locations of the 10 parks, and they'll have to map the 10 parks, like I said, and they'll learn geography while studying about the biology and the ecology. So I wanted to find a way to incorporate the geography into something that was a standard for the high school science. As far as assessment, there'll be a rubric that they'll be provided, and the presentation will be graded as a group. And the teacher will facilitate a hands-off method and just provide guidance throughout the project. So that's one of the reasons I didn't include some resources for them, because I think the 10th graders gain a lot by finding their own resources as they're doing the research. I think they're definitely capable of that. Okay, that's all for my PBL, and this is the last slide of the presentation. It just says who you saw during the presentation.
Actually, we have a wrap-up piece.
Okay.
Hello, I'm back. Found myself in an interesting position when we did this. I, as far as I know, am the only geography teacher here. As a geography teacher, I find myself in an interesting position. Geography is the bridge between the sciences. Therefore, I am a physical scientist as well as a social scientist. For instance, if I talk about economic issues in an area, I need to talk about, say, the geological ties. Jerome, Arizona is a perfect example. If I want to talk about the economy of Jerome, Arizona 100 years ago, I have to understand somewhat the geology of copper and the art of copper mining. We picked the problem-based scenario, or the problem-based learning, because it creates a scenario that gives us the ability to create a curriculum that spirals through grade levels with clear, meaningful connections, provides grade level appropriate scenarios, is standards based. On the middle school piece alone, slides 13 through 17 were the standards for that piece alone, and they didn't include language, arts, and math standards. It is also cross-curricular. As the pressure mounts to achieve higher scores on standardized testing, a lot of curriculum is beginning to get left by the roadside if it's in a non-tested area. This curriculum that we just designed presents an opportunity to promote geoliteracy while practicing and utilizing the standards that students need to have in order to be successful on the testing. Again, we focused on just 3 standards: science, geography, and technology, but the other standards are easily meshed in there. The value of geography literacy, if you're going to use problem-based learning, there is just sadly an overabundance of problems related to geographic and environmental matters out there. So there's no shortage of material that you could use to utilize this. I hope that we've presented this in a manner that shows you that and that makes you understand the importance of geoliteracy to the students of today's world. Thank you very much.